Ready? This is Robbie Luckett. It is April the 3rd, 2013, in Air Hall at the Margaret Walker Center. I'm here with Dr. John Peoples. Dr. Peoples, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Can you begin by telling us today a little bit about yourself and your background and how you grew up in your family and your life and what led you to come to Jackson State?
Well, I'm from Stockton, Mississippi, home of Mississippi State. Grew up there. Went to high school there. Finished in May 1944. And went to the United States Marine Corps in December of 44. Spent 2.5 years in the United States Marine Corps, where I essentially matured and had no intention of coming to Jackson State. I knew all about Mississippi State. That was what I knew about a college, you know. It turned out that in the Marine Corps, I had a lot of experiences, but the last thing I did was I trained to be a radio technician, although I had been a drill instructor. So I wanted to be an engineer since I knew about radio tech. But I found that my transcript from Stockton, Mississippi, the black school, Otsego County Training School, wasn't sufficient to go to, say, MIT or Caltech. And I had no transcript from the Marine Corps to prove what I knew. So I ended up coming down here on a temporary basis, so I thought. But when I got here, along about that time, World War II ended and they were laying off engineers, they were becoming teachers, and so I was inspired to become a mathematics major and become a teacher. So I finished number one in my class here at Jackson State and became the president's favorite, so to speak, and he wanted to place me where he had once worked in Gary, Indiana as a math teacher. So I ended up being in Gary, Indiana as a mathematics teacher. And in the meantime, President Reddick kept in touch with me. He kept on saying I was the kind of person he wanted to replace him one day. That came about mainly because I was a good student, I was a good football player. And I recall after we had played Dillard University, which used to have a super team back in those days, I had made the first 2 touchdowns. I was a split end, they would call it wide receiver now. And he stopped me on campus and started talking about, he said, "Young man, I knew you were a good student, but I never knew you could play football like that." So I became one of his favorites, you know, and so at any rate, he pursued me about coming back here. While in Gary, Indiana, I kept on going to school at the University of Chicago part-time. Got a PhD, and then he tried to get me to come down there right away, which I didn't want to do. He looked very bad down here. They were killing folk for just trying to vote and all that kind of stuff. But I had friends who had stayed here and were carrying on useful lives, you know. And I would come down on vacation, and those guys was down here, and I was up there. I said, you know what, I'll think about coming back here. So President Reddick finally convinced me to talk with the college board about coming back here. And there was one board member from Stockton who used to be at Mississippi State as the Dean of Ag. And he was really sold on me. He said, you know what, I bet you used to be my golf caddy, which wasn't true, but I said, I might have been, sir. He said, you know, I'm going to make a golf caddy into a college president. So I became because this man think maybe I can come back and have a friend in court. Anyway, I finally decided to come back, and they created a special position for me, the first vice president of Jackson State. I was vice president and assistant to the president of Jacob L. Reddick's, and I came in the fall of 1964.
What did your parents do in Starkville?
Well, my parents were not educated people, but my dad ran a cafe and a dance hall called People's Hall. Everybody knew People's Hall. And so my mom worked in the cafe. She essentially ran it. And, but they were not college people at all. In fact, they were concerned about my getting too much learning. Somebody told my mama that if I keep on going to school, I might lose my mind. And she said, "Son, I don't want you to lose your mind. Now, you know, you're getting all those degrees." I said, "Mom, don't worry about it." But they were just solid people, and we were not rich folk, but we were not poor during the Depression days. And so we were just, he made just enough money for us to be, I guess you may say, lower middle class black people in Starkville, Mississippi.
Were you drafted or did you join the Marine Corps?
I was drafted. I didn't plan to be a Marine. Actually, going down to Camp Shelby, and on the way back through Jackson, we stopped somewhere, I forgot where it was, and this Marine captain came in and called my name and two other guys. "You boys are Marines." I said, "Excuse me, sir, I plan to go to the Navy. I already signed up for it." He said, "It's the same outfit. Get over here." The Marine Corps breaks with the Navy, and it's the same outfit. Get over here. And in the Marine Corps, I ended up being in the Marine Corps. But once I got there, you know, it was rigidly segregated, and that's another story to tell about that. I don't know if you saw about 6 months ago where I was one of the Marines who went to Munford Point, and we got Congressional Gold Medal. Did you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was part of that setup there, but I thrived on it mainly because I was, I guess, rugged and ambitious, you know. So I made on in my platoon, and went to 2 service schools. I went to NCO school, trained to be a drill instructor, and so that's how I spent the time. That's another story to tell about my Marine Corps thing. That's all in my book. I'm talking about my book in one sense, but that's how I got there. I was drafted.
And were you deployed at all to Europe or to the Pacific?
No, I was pulled to be an instructor. Back in those days, there were very few African Americans who had even high school diplomas. And I had a high school diploma, and I made a very high mark on the intelligence test. And so they pulled me out, sent me to what they call NCO school. Now let me say NCO school, but it's non-commissioned officer school. They did not commission blacks in the Marine Corps in those days. You couldn't get a commission no matter how smart you were. Not that I was smart enough to be one, but the point was NCO school was like going to officers training school. So they didn't admit blacks to the Marine Corps until 1942, I believe, at the behest of the President of the United States. There was so much pressure to let blacks join the Marine Corps, which was dominated more or less by Southerners in those days. So at any rate, I didn't go overseas. And I don't care, mainly because they were all assigned to menial positions. They weren't properly trained in weaponry, and they were put in what they call either work outfits or ammunition. They had to carry ammunition for the white boys. Hit the beach, carry a box of ammunition. Or you had a rifle, but only when you were losing when you would fight. If they were winning, we'd be in the second or third echelon. So I have no risk. Not that I didn't want to necessarily get killed or anything, but the point was a lot of the guys regretted that they were getting killed and not being properly trained to have the right weaponry.
And would love to hear the story about what led to the Congressional Medal recently.
Oh, well, that was really compensatory in the sense that making up for the way they treated us as Marines. See, there had been an ongoing campaign called the Right to Fight, and the black Marines in World War II were not allowed to fight, you know, in the sense that they fought only when we were losing, you know, but hitting the beach in this heroic way Marines supposed to, they didn't get that. They were workers, you know, servants, and there's just a lot to be told about the things they did. One instance, at Munford Point. That was what that was all about. Munford Point was a separate camp they set aside for black Marines called Munford Point Camp, separate from the white camp. We had no officers that were black. The white officers didn't live with us. They would come over at 8 o'clock and leave at 5 in a cloud of dust. And the blacks really ran the camp. Black NCOs ran the camp. The whites came and sat at a desk all day, and they would leave. So that was resentment on their part, on the blacks' part about that we were treated in that particular sense. And also the ranking. You just couldn't get a promotion. It was very hard to get a promotion because we got the leftover money. And so you could be in there for years and never get a stripe, you know. Yeah. I got my 2 stripes because when the war ended, I was really sent to California, and that's another story in itself. But someone decided, let's give those blacks a chance to be trained. So they pulled about 10 of us to get this special training in electronics to be radio technicians, and they picked 2 of us to become instructors to go back to the black camp and train the other blacks in radio. So I was sent to Camp Pendleton, California, to the so-called track vehicle battalion, and went to this school. Now, at this particular school, everybody was smart. Us 10 guys that said that we were all sharp people, and everybody in the school was really smart. But they contrived that no black would make a mark higher than a white. So in the exams that we had to have, something like in physics, you know, either you're right or you're wrong. If they tell me to tell what this resistor does in this particular set, radio set, it does either this or that, just something like math. You're right or you're wrong. So it was a 10-point question. They gave me a 9, -1. And they kept doing -1 until I was below the lowest white guy on my exams. So I finally went in and complained about it. And the major said, Peoples, what the hell, you're going to pass this course, you're going to get your promotion, we're going to send you back to Munford Point to train the other blacks. What do you want? Stop itch-paying and get out there, get on the ball. So I learned that that's what happened. I mean, I passed the course, but my mark was 1 point below the lowest white guy. That's the guy who knows too. I'm just, so back to the point of being compensatory. All those little, this is just one story of what happened. Other guys had stories. Guys who went overseas had voice stories than I have. So the campaign to make up to us led to somebody in Congress passing a bill to give all the ones who went to Munford Point Camp in World War II the Congressional Gold Medal. Now, this is not the Medal of Honor what you get by it's the Congressional Gold Medal. It's a pretty high honor, and I was proud to get it. But it was just make up, you know.
So at the end of the war, where did you find yourself?
Well, at the end of the war, it was really something kind of funny because to get a discharge, but you were still in there, and somebody had to do the occupation of Japan in those areas out there. And if you didn't have enough points to be discharged, you were in there. You get points by either combat service or being married and being made more of a burden financially on the government. I was unmarried. I hadn't been overseas. I had no points. So I wasn't going to really get out, it seems. But here's what happened. At Camp Pendleton, after they trained us, and after the war was completely over, they didn't know what to do with us. They rushed on the deal to start the black school for blacks over Munford Point. And they had picked 2 of us to go back there. And so we were there, and they didn't transfer us. I don't know why. And so finally I was, when our transfer papers came in, the 2 of us, Lusby and myself, were called in by the colonel, Colonel Peterson. He's a Jewish colonel. He had told us when we came out, he said, now you young men over in North Carolina, there was segregation. Out here there would be no segregation, but you got to do what you're supposed to do and be like anybody else. if you have any troubles, you just let me know. So when they transferred me back, he said, I'm not going to put race on your transfer papers. They won't know you're black until you get there. And I'm going to send you to the white camp. So they actually sent me and my friend Lusby, who was supposed to go to Montford Point to teach, but they sent us to the white camp. And so while we were just outside there, we heard the colonel say, oh boy, we got 2 of those hotshot radio techs from Camp Pendleton. We need those guys. Send them in here. I went in, saluted sharply. Send these boys back to Montford Point. So they sent us back to the black camp, dumped our sea bags at the gate, and left us at the gate, just like that. So when we went into the camp and reported to the highest ranking black there, who was a 6-striper, he said, son, we ain't got none of that stuff here that y'all been trained for. That's for the white boys. Now we can let y'all fix telephones. I said, I request to see the commanding officer. He said, what do you mean? I said, I request to see the commanding officer. So you really can't refuse that, you know. And so they sent me to see the colonel there. He said, but Peoples, he said, what's the problem? I said, so I request to be transferred to an outfit that has the kind of gear I've been trained to repair. He said, I don't know if I can do that. But he said, I'll write this down, make your request, put your request through. I said, in the meantime, sir, I understand that they've been having black sergeants take groups of men over to the white camp to clean it up. I said, I wouldn't like to, I don't want to do that, sir. I said, I've been trained to do some pretty high-tech stuff. He said, I can do that too. And so, so it was. I was resented by the black sergeants who didn't have to, who didn't like it when I didn't have to work. I had nothing to do. There I was, nothing to do, no assignment. I could sleep all day. I went to the library, I did all kinds of stuff, but I had no assignment. And so what happened was that the guy who was a personnel sergeant decided not to give me a furlough. So I would go back and forth. That's furlough papers. They're not ready yet. They were mad with me because I didn't have to work. So finally, one day, I met this guy. We were in the head. The head is the latrine. We were both latrine. I said, Sergeant, I said, I don't know what's wrong, but I said, I don't know if you got my point when I came back here. I was trying to speak up for us black Marines. And I said, seems I'm resented. He said, yes, you're resented. You think, oh, you went to school with those white boys in California that you're better than we are. I said, no, I don't. Oh, you should do. You went to the camp. You went over out here. We run this camp. The white boys don't run this camp. You got to come through us, man. You know that? You got to come through us. He said, come on. Here are your papers in my desk right here. You go on to Mississippi and take your furlough, but you should come through us. You don't go to the white man. And so, no. So when I had my furlough and came back to Montford Point after my furlough, I saw guys going toward the gate with sea bags. What you got to do? I said, man, all you got to do, if you're not a servant or if you're not a cook or off the servant, you can be discharged right now. I said, what? I went there, it was on the wall, all neighbor, letter number 423 or something. All Negro Marines who are not cooks, bakers, or stewards are hereby authorized to be discharged, COG, that's for the convenience of the government, between the dates of July 1 and July 30, something like that. So what they did, they were trying to get the Marines out who were not servants. And so I went and signed that thing, man, because I thought it was an honorable discharge. And I had enough time with GI Bill time to go to college. So that's how I was discharged, COG, honorable discharge, COG, because I had too much training. Now, of course, now that was kind of mandated because somebody went to the NAACP and it got a lot of bad publicity, and they changed all that, you know. But that's how I was discharged from the Marine Corps. That's why I say all of this Congressional Gold Medal is kind of a compensatory making up on the way we were treated.
And what brought you to Jackson State as a student?
Well, my high school principal, when I found I couldn't make it in MIT, couldn't get to MIT or Caltech or any place in engineering because I didn't have the transcript for it. See, in Starkville, the black school had no science at all except from the book. The football coach taught science, and he didn't know any science at all. He would just read from the book, no lab, nothing. So and the principal taught math. He didn't know but a couple of years, and so I wasn't really qualified to go to a school of engineering. So, but he said, John Arthur, you just go on down to Jackson State and talk to Dean Sampson. Made him Sampson Hall his name, and he said he'll tell you what you need to do. So when I came down, my plan was to go to school 2 years here to get ready to go to another school. But as I think I said earlier, they were laying off engineers who were becoming teachers, and my advisor, I made straight A's from the get-go, and Dean Sampson said, if you don't leave, John, I'll let you take classes with the upperclassmen. So as a freshman, I started taking some of the advanced courses with the upperclassmen. And so I ended up staying here, and I got a master's degree in 3 years by going summers and taking an overload all the while I was here. Played football on the track team and everything else. But I had enough GI Bill time I had 4 years of GI Bill time. So I spent 3 years here to get a BS and 1 year at U of Chicago to get a master's. So that's what happened to me. And in the meantime, I had such a good record, everybody knew me, and the president wanted me to come back one day, which I wasn't sure I was going to do.
And what years was that when you were a student here?
I came here in August of 1947, right? To August because of the football. I was on the football team. The football boys had to come earlier. 47 to 50. Finished in May of 50.
What was Jackson State like then?
I'm telling you, it was, we had, this building was here, this was Allen Hall, without the top floor, was just burned up. We had Allen Hall, the barracks were torn down. There were two barracks, 1A and 2A, and they had Johnson Hall, which has been added to. And they had Barrett, this is Al, right? Barrett, Al Hall and Barrett Hall. Barrett Hall was for girls, freshmen and sophomores, and Al was for girls, junior, senior. And as a matter of fact, we boys would sit in the middle and girl watch coming back and forth. And this first floor was called the cooperative store. And that was about it. So far as buildings were concerned, we hadn't bought out Campbell College. That happened my first year's brother. Across the street was Campbell College, a small Methodist school. But you knew everybody because we had only about 700 or 800 students, if that many. And I really had a ball. I enjoyed myself because I got to be like BMOC, big man on the campus. I was in everything, student body president, and almost everything, football player. And so that was some other guys who were doing well too, but I had a ball, so it was an enjoyable life. But so far as having a strong curriculum, it was terribly weak. I took all the majors. They didn't have very many, but I took the math science major, they had an English major, they had a so-called social science major. I just took everything in order to get a good background. So ask me something else, but
Were there people who stood out in your memory when you were a student here? You mentioned Dean Sampson.
Yes, Dean Sampson was, since he taught math and encouraged me to go to U of Chicago, where he had, I first read his thesis when I went up there. The president was outstanding. Reddick, Shakespeare Reddick was outstanding. And so was B. Baldwin Danby, who was the previous president. He probably should have been the president. The school went bankrupt in Great Depression, and Dansby was able to get some of the outstanding white businessmen to support the effort to for the state to take over the school. So and that was Mrs. Blackburn Hall. You know, you don't know her, but Margaret Walker Alexander was outstanding. But she came my junior senior year. Everybody's talking about that woman giving all those F's in English, you know. And so I said, well, who is she? Margaret Walker Alexander, man, she's supposed to be some famous writer. And so I was really afraid to approach her. Well, what you gonna do about it? She's giving F's. You're supposed to be the student body president. What you gonna do about it? I said, I don't know. so anyway, when I saw this, I want to go to school around that woman myself, you know. But I had all my classes, you know, so I didn't ever say anything to her about that. But she was outstanding. I just had a little conversation with her, you know, but I never said anything about the kids who were complaining because I was so impressed with her until I didn't. But she did come my last year, and she was an outstanding person. And later on, when I came back as president, we became best of friends, you know, Margaret Walker. The football coach, T.B. Ellis. T.B. Ellis really impressed me because he would never give you a complete praise. He would say, you know, you coming more and more like a football player. Yeah, I mean about 2 or 3 touchdowns. You're coming for you. One day you're going to be a football player. He would never completely tell you that you did well. T.B. Ellis, so he impressed me quite a bit.
And what was the campus like when you came back, and what was the city like in 1964 when you returned?
Oh, well, when I came back, it was the campus was ready. When the state took over, they reduced it down to 2 years. It was called Mississippi Negro Training School because they already had Alcorn, a 4-year school, and several of these Jackson State. So he was patient enough to, within 4 years, to bring it back to a 4-year college. So when I came back, I was President Reddick's vice president, and I had great dreams because I had told the board, I said, if I come back, sir, I'm going to try to make Jackson State a university and to serve all the people, regardless of race. Well, Dr. Peoples, that's going to happen in time, but we just want somebody we know to come back here and we can work with. I said, yes, sir. So when I came back, my mission was to try to build up this curriculum and to build up the faculty. And the faculty was very good people, but they were not really trained except in education. There was very few, if any, maybe one or two folk who were in a pure field like math or biology. But it's a matter of building up the faculty. And there was although it was no longer legal to insist that you can't hire anybody but blacks, there was this inertia, folk were afraid to do so. So one of the first things I did was to employ a white man who was an Ole Miss grad. And so at one time I told the board the color of the person. Now, Dr. Peoples, aren't you afraid this man may be some kind of a communist or something? They figured anybody who's a fool enough to work at JSU white must be some kind of nut or a communist, you know. I said, no, sir, he went to Ole Miss. He did. So they let me hire him. I've got this man's name now, it's in my book. From that time on, then I got in touch with a nunnery, or the order of nuns of Wisconsin. I got that name now, but they had nuns who had degrees in English and math and so on, pure fields, who wanted to come south to work. So I hired, I guess about 4 or 5 of them to come down, and it was a funny thing. They had never had any money. They would turn the money back up to the order. And one said, what do we do with this money, Dr. People? We never had money before. I said, well, you have to use it. So they wanted to set up anonymous scholarships on the campus, you know. But that was the beginning of my trying to have Jackson State become a solid school, you know. And gradually, as they became, you could find them, because the few blacks who got degrees in those days, man, they were hard to get, and they would come in and want to be made a full professor on the spot, just out of school, want to be a full professor. So it was very hard to find, and they would play musical chairs from school to school, you know. If you give them a raise, they'd jump over to Tuskegee, or jump over to Texas Southern, you know, just because they had got a PhD and I'm black, you know, I'm a hot piece of property. So it was very hard in those early days to find qualified blacks who would come and really want to come here and stay. But that was the kind of a situation I found. And all in the meantime, I was facing up with the college board who was trying to keep the school from going beyond being just a teacher's college. And so they would oppose my trying to bring in these new degrees, you see. But I did it on a kind of gradual basis. Early in the game, they didn't pay much of attention. But when I began to be noticed by the University of Mississippi, you know, in a competition way, they began to say, well, you know, what you're doing. So at first they had us, they called it the Special Education Committee of the College Board. They were all special ed. And so the black presidents went to the Special Ed Committee to present their case, and the Special Ed Committee had to go to the full board. We didn't go before the full board. But after Jackson State, I got some federal money, you know. We were doing a lot of stuff, bringing all these people. And they said, well, you're no longer special ed. I mean, you can't get So, you know, we broke out of the special ed thing. And there's a lot more to tell about how I broke out of the special ed thing, because right away I would not accept any overt segregation. The black presidents, when I first came aboard, were not allowed to sit in the same reading room with the whites. They would have to stand right in the hall. But I went in and sat right down with them. No big deal, you know, sitting down. And they would, you'd tell me to shake your hand, think I'm gonna leave. I didn't leave, I sat right there. And so that's just one little thing I did to let them.
And how did they react to that?
Well, they didn't react. One or two might. They didn't. These were guys who had PhDs. I mean, they'd been to school, so it was just a matter of waiting for the walls to be broken down. I mean, I didn't make any big deal of it. I just went, "How you guys doing?" And I had a seat. You know. Now, all while I'd been with my predecessor, I stood in the hall. But once I became the president, I said, "I'm going to sit down with these guys." Just simple stuff like that. They had a president's council made of just the white presidents, and they went before the legislature to present our case too. So I went to them, and I said, "Why are we not a member of the president's council?" "Well, John, if the legislature knew that we were sitting down with you guys, we could get any money." I said, "I can't believe that. I just can't believe it." I said, "I'm going to go to the press on y'all guys." I really didn't at that time. I went to the two blacks. I said, "Look, let's organize our own council." "Now, you're moving too fast, John. You're moving too fast now. We don't need no council. We don't need no council." So what happened was when they changed president of Mississippi State, his guy's name not James. He said, "John, just come on in to the meeting like you always remember. Just come on in. And tell other two guys to come too." And they said, other two guys said, "Well, no, we let you go." So I went on and I became a member of the President's Council. The next year they made me the president of the council. And they just broke it down just like that, no big deal, see. But I'm just telling you the way I had to go in and open things up. Not that someone else could have done it, but somebody had to do it. And I just made it clear how I was going to operate if I was going to be president of Jackson State.
And how long was it from the time you came as vice president and assistant to the president till when you became president? How long did you serve in that position?
Well, what happened when I first came down, I was told that Rich was going to retire the next year. but he decided not to. So when he decided not to, I saw this in this journal, I forget the name of American Higher Education Journal, where they had internships sponsored by the Ford Foundation and the American Council on Education, internships in higher education administration. So I went to Rex. I said, would you recommend me for this? Since I'm not going to, he said, sure, you can have it. So I didn't never think I'd make it, but surely I did. They selected from all over the country 5 persons from each of 5 sections of the country. And so I went to Tulane, and where I met several other young academics who wanted the same thing. And I was one of 3 selected. They couldn't find 5. Only 3 of us qualified. So I was sent to the State University of New York at Binghamton to intern for a year. And that's what kind of like my training for president of Jackson State, because I got a chance to meet a lot of real sharp people from all over the country. And I met Governor Rockefeller, who tried to get me to stay up there. He said, you can't do anything, but Mississippi, can you? I said, yes, I can. I plan to go back there and do something. He said, well, if you have trouble, we want you back up here. Of course, I came back down here. I left. It was just, I came down here in 64, 65. I went to Binghamton for 65, 66. Came back here in May of 66. And served with President Reddick until March of 67. That's the day I became president. The day he became 70, he didn't want to leave until he became 70. I said, okay. So May of 70, I became president.
March of?
March of 1967. I get the May of 70.
March of 1967.
Yeah, March 67. That day I became president. When I came in that day, this is kind of funny. President Reddick was in his office. He said, they didn't say which day you would come. He said, I'm president today. I said, thank you, sir. I went to the golf course. I'll come back tomorrow, I know. But I came back on the next day. So that's when I became president. Really, my contract said March 2nd, but on March 2nd, he was still the president, so I came back on March 3rd and began to work.
What was it like, what was the feeling like to become president of your alma mater?
Well, really, it was kind of exciting, to tell the truth, because there was just so much to do. It's just amazing. I mean, just to conceive of what we have now, there was so much to do. I mean, the students were in a sense depressed. One of the first things I did was to liberate the students. I said, look, there were students who were about to be, who were being, I would say, expelled or suspended for simple stuff like not going to Sunday afternoon vespers, yet mandatory vespers, you know. They had a curfew for the girls. The girls couldn't ride in cars. And just like, and then all of the professors were so arrogant, you know, they would try to send people home for nothing, you know. And so I talked with the kids. I said, look, no, the people up there think we're not going to, that we're not going to really educate you. I said, let's fool them. I said, let's really get a good education, okay? Let's fool them. Let's get an education here. That's now, we're in this thing together. We're together in this thing. So you have a part to play too. And so they kind of took to me. First of all, the kids had these giant afros. I had a small afro too. So anyway, we had several demonstrations, and this was the days of the Black Student Revolution. But I could walk among the kids. I said, you know, so what do you guys want? We can't do that, man. You know, we can't tear the place down. You can't do that. But you can march. As a matter of fact, the governor of the state, Governor John Bell Williams, called in the 3 black presidents to his office. He was just being elected. He had been in the United States Congress. He got elected governor. So he said, "Now, I want y'all to stop y'all people from all this protesting and marching in the streets out there. I can handle these other peckerwoods, but I want y'all to handle y'all people. Now y'all, the biggest people in the state, the biggest blacks in the state." Other two guys do that kind of like, I said, "Excuse me, Governor." I said, "Governor, I plan to allow the Jackson State students to protest on the campus. I will not allow them to destroy property, but they can protest on the campus. That's your job to handle the people in the streets. That's your job. You have police power." Dr. Peoples, I appreciate your frankness. I'm just glad that you just told me what you really gonna do. I appreciate that. You know what? I want your band to march in my inauguration. I said, "Thank you, sir." So that's where I started off with the governor. And that's what I did. I told the kids, I said, "Now look, you guys, we having a hard time getting these buildings, you know. And the people think that we're a bunch of people in the streets. But we're here, I want you to march into that library and study in that library. Let's march on the library." Everybody didn't do that, but in the main, they did. I mean, they believed in me because I wasn't afraid of them, and they saw that I wasn't afraid of the man, so to speak. You know? And so that was the atmosphere I came in on. I told the guys, I said, "Okay, now we're going to stop this curfew stuff. I want you to stop this slipping with the girls off the campus. I want you to go to the dormitory, take the young ladies to the movies and back." I said movies now, and back. And that was a big change, you know, just to be free. Also, I want them to be able to speak up. It's through the newspaper. I said, "I want you to editorialize against me if you want to. Tell the truth about it." So the newspaper was, but Dr. Peoples, the teachers and me, I said, "Look, you just go on and say what you need to say." But they were more afraid of the teachers than of me, because many things need to be said about teachers who were exploiting the kids, you know, some of the men teachers trying to go with the girls, you know, and some were not coming to class on time and all that kind of stuff. But then they started an underground newspaper. They came to my office, to the old president's home, and wanted to start an underground newspaper. It's called the Gadfly. The Gadfly would be, which they would talk about politicians, talk about the governor, talk about teachers and so on. Now, I knew who the Gadfly people were, but the teachers didn't. And so they talked about Alcorn and Valley. Because Alcorn and Mississippi Valley, they were doing horrible things. They suspended 500 or 600 kids all at once one night. I know down in Alcorn, kids decided to protest, and the president called the highway patrol and buses and put them all on buses and sent them home right away that very same night. Valley did something similar. Well, the Gadfly talked about this, and so I got called onto the board. "Dr. P, what's this Gadfly y'all got out there? Y'all just stirring people up at Alcorn and Valley, talking about the president." I said, "Sir," I said, "the Gadfly is some students, I guess, who are expressing their viewpoints about stuff. If I tried to stop them, it would make it even worse." "Well, you've got to do something about it." I said, "Well, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know who they are." Of course I did. So anyway, that's just another little thing, that way I got to be kind of endeared to the students, because they believed in me, and I believed in them and loved them. And so I got up to a good start with the kids.
Well, while we're talking about student protests on campus, of course, also want to talk about your perspective of the events in 1970 surrounding Gibbs Green.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, actually, as I said, this was the days of student protests. Lynch Street was a major thoroughfare coming right through here, and the white neighborhoods began right down there, not too far from maybe Ellis and back, so and even some this way. And so white people would drive through here going back and forth. And from time to time there were intercations. Oh, we bought Calmer College, which was across the street. So we were back and forth across the street. And so there were some name calling, you know, back and forth. Kids call white people's honkies. They call the kids niggers and so on. And so what happened in 1967, my very first year, because of, I guess, the name calling, some kids begun to throw rocks and balls at cars passing by who contained whites. That was in '67. And the policeman chased a boy driving a car up on the campus. And the city police came out with tear gas, shooting at the kids to break it up. Then in '68, the night Martin Luther King was killed, the kids went to the streets and started throwing bricks and balls at cars. And so the city police came out with tear gas, shooting at the, something like that. Then in '69, some kids got to fighting with some of the street boys, and the street boys came up here fighting with the kids, and then when the white people came, they started throwing at white people. And then in 1970, this is the fourth year, I was over in the Union Building. We had a faculty bridge club. As I came out after the bridge club was over, on the girl, Dr. Peoples, some boys throwing bricks and rocks at white people again, and sure enough, there it was. Bam, bam, bam. So I went and got on my little telephone, walkie-talkie, called the chief of my chief. I said, "What?" He said, "Dr. Peoples, they're mad. The kids are worse than ever been. They're throwing bricks at our cars." And so we got the police to block off the street between down at Rose and on down at the street. And we would always do that to stop cars from passing through. For that particular night, it did seem the kids were more angry than ever. I don't know exactly why they were angry. Maybe I should know it because there was a lot of racism going on, you know, but I tried to confine it, our kids to our campus. But what happened there was I asked the chief of police, I said, "Chief Pierce, would you please keep the street blocked for another day or so until things cool down?" "No, doctor, some people they have to go home. The white people who live, they have to pass through. We gotta open the street up. We're just gonna guard the street. You have to stop you with the rocks." And so when that next night came, I forget those dates, May 14th and 15th, something like that. Surely enough, here's what happened. We were having a concert over here, and the 1812 overture of, you know, ends with the Canton shooting. It talks about the French Revolution, if you remember that. And so to end that concert, there was some blank pistol shot showing the way that particular symphony ends. And the policeman said there were guns being shot on the campus, which wasn't really true. So the concert ended, the boys walked the girls over to Alexander Hall, as they normally do from the concert. They were standing in the yard. But the rumor that there were guns on the campus caused the city to be alerted with their policemen on one other thing that happened. I had got the city of Jackson to include Jackson State in their bond issue. The sewage line up and down Lynch was too small after we built that big dormitory. So the mayor said, "Well, doctor, if you keep it quiet, we'll put you in the bond issue and we'll enlarge your sewage line running through Lynch." So we had trucks, dump trucks parked up and down the street with giant 50-gallon gasoline, and some of the street boys decided to set one of those trucks afire through one of the little smush pots inside the truck. The truck began to blaze up. It was close to a dorm, and so they called the fire department. The fire department said, "We're not going to come out there unless we have an escort, because we heard that there were guns on the campus." And so the fire department came out and they put the fire out in the truck, and the boys went up to the next block and started another fire with some garbage paper and stuff. So the fire truck went around, but the policemen who were guarding them decided to walk up Lake Street. And when they got to the women's dormitory, where the boys were just standing there with the girl they had walked from this concert, and the cop said, "I want y'all to go inside." The boys said, "Well, we don't live, we can't go inside." They ordered them to go inside. The girls went inside, but the boys had nowhere to go. They didn't live in the dormitory. So somebody threw a bottle into the streets, and the cops went wild and started shooting. And they wounded about 15 or 20 girls who were in the dorm and killed 2 boys. And that's how that happened. There's a lot more to it, what I'm saying now. It's come to my book pretty thoroughly, but that's how that happened, really. And so I called the governor's office, and he said, "Dr. People, they said that that your boys started it." I said, why would they had machine guns shooting into a woman's dormitory. How can we have started that? Anyway, it looked so bad, and at that time there was an election going on in the country for president. And from all over the country, people centered on Jackson State, from schools. 2 or 3 of the candidates came down here. The next day, I had to close the school. But then the newspaper came out and said, someone said there might have been a sniper in the dormitory. If the sniper, why didn't you go get the sniper? You didn't go get the sniper, you shot up the dormitory. They said the sniper. That's the lie they told them. See, a black male on the 5th floor, the women dormitory shot down them. I said, why didn't you go get it? Anyway, that's in a general, not detailed of what happened that night. If you read my book, you'll get the details of it, because I had my notes.
What are some of the moments of triumph that stand out in your mind during your tenure as president?
Well, the fact that I was able to, early in the game, defy segregation and be able to integrate within the so-called presidential structure. That's one thing. That's the early thing. And then the second thing was that challenge of, I call it the academic struggle, to move at Jackson State into the mainstream of academia, away from being just a little small black teachers college. That was, I would say, the second thing. I call it the academic struggle. Academic struggle, which I cover in my book in about 3 phases, early phase and so on down the line. And Jackson State becoming a university. In one sense, the name only. In another sense, we finally grew into a university. The Ayers decision. The Ayers case was started when I was in 1974. And I went to court 2 or 3 times. And I would not change my recommendations, you see. The college board tried to get me to go along with them to keep Jackson State more or less where it was. And I had recommended that Jackson State have a School of Engineering, that we have doctoral degrees on up to part of where it is now. And that was in we had to make out a compliance plan. And my compliance plan was beyond what they thought we should be. And so I said, so I'm going to recommend this. You can always not approve it. See, they wanted me to not recommend this stuff, you see. I recommended that the University Center be a part of Jackson State's campus. I said, it keeps us from integrating. It gives the whites a way out and not to come out here. That was on my recommendation. They wanted me to take it off. I said, I'd recommend this to you, sir. You hired me to recommend to you the best for Jackson State. This is what I recommend, so I would never take it off. And boy, they didn't like me for that. They said, you're not cooperating with us in this, Dr. Peoples, in this suit, Dr. Peoples. And so I simply, I'm going to recommend to you what I think is best for Jackson State. And so the triumph in that particular sense was that although I wasn't here to see it all the way through, I was here with the beginning of it, and the basic demands in the Ayers case were put forth by me. As a matter of fact, I used to meet with the lawyers secretly. The lawyers for the case, part of was the Justice Department as well as local lawyers. We would meet the night before they were supposed to go before the court, and they would get from me what they should, what are we going to be pushing for. Oh, by the way this thing was set up, the plaintiffs, the defendants in that case included the white presidents, but did not include the black presidents. But they made us pay anyway. The way the state paid for this, they would take off the top of our appropriation the money to pay the lawyers to fight the case, which was, and the case was to keep the black institutions from advancing. So that was the Ayers case, in a sense that the opponents, well, the state and the black presidents were against each other, so to speak. I'm trying to say. But in Jackson State's case, I would not change my recommendations to the board, and that's why you got the School of Engineering here and got all these doctoral programs, because I would never take it off.
Did you provide any other support for Jake Ayers and the case he was trying to make?
Well, I wasn't, but Jake Ayers directly. I really the support I had in the depositions. I was depositioned by the lawyers for the board, and in every case I was speaking more or less for Jackson State. Now Jake Ayers really applied to Ole Miss. I believe started off with Ole Miss, so I wasn't relating to him directly. It was a matter of Jackson State University. And the reason I had to say Jackson State is because I wasn't always one-on-one with the other two presidents who were, I guess I was more adventurous, so they didn't always agree with me. So I said, well, this is what I recommend for Jackson State. Because by right, Alcorn, which was the original land-grant school here, should have been the major university. They were way ahead of us. Alcorn was the first black land-grant school in the whole nation. They'd had an aggressive president, but because they were firing guys, anybody who spoke up now, they would fire them, And they could have, and they did eventually fire me, but the point is, they didn't fire me early,
We are going to have to change a tape here pretty soon. We have a 60-minute tape, so I want to keep talking,
Okay.
but we're going to have to stop for 1 second so that we
Okay.
can get a new tape real quick and give you a chance to get some water too, because we've been
Okay.
Okay. You were talking about triumphs at Jackson State during your presidency. We talked about people and things that stood out in your mind while you were a student. Are there people that stand out in your mind during your years as president at Jackson State?
Well, I can look at two levels, I guess, students as well as faculty and administrators. People all know about Walter Payton and how he came to be here. Well, in the first place, having been a football player, I would always in the afternoon go down and watch the football boys practice and so on. I would know the plays and know the guys, and you see those guys out there, but if you get to see their faces and know who they are, they become real people to you. So Eddie Payton, who was his brother, was here before Walter, and he came in one day while he was a junior. He said, Doctor, my little brother was a pretty good football player. I said, oh yes, good. He may be as good as I am one day. I said, okay, that's fine. But I didn't think too much about it, you know. So that next spring, I heard him out there. I got to see Dr. People. I got to see Dr. People. I got to see him. I got to see him. I said, let him in. He said, Doc, remember I told you about my little brother? I said, yes. He said, well, they got him over at Kansas State and they won't let him come home. I said, what do you mean? They're trying to recruit him and they won't let him come home. He said, he's good, Doc. He's good, Doc. He's good. I said, all right. Okay. I said, well, I sent for Coach Bob Hill. He said, Doc, we got to get him. I said, well, get him. He said, well, now you got to let me get him now. So I said, what do you mean? I said, look, now, remember, I have to sign this thing for NC2A saying that nothing has happened wrong. I got to sign this thing so I don't do anything wrong. Well, I got to get him, Doc. I said, well, I don't want to know what you did. Just don't do anything wrong. I don't know either, but I think, see, they had insulted Walter, who was a pretty good student, you know, and they told him you had to have a tutor and all that kind of stuff, you know, made him mad, you know. And then they would give him his ticket home. So he had called his mother and his brother, I guess, whoever. But anyway, we got him back here. So I got to know Walter quite well, you know, after he got here. And I became friends even to this day with his mother. So he's one student who was outstanding. And on the faculty at Jackson State, I mentioned Margaret Walker, who was an outstanding person. There were people like T.J. Robinson, who was one of my stalwarts as a vice president. You know, it's a long time ago. It's hard for me to remember names now. But I had I would say a good, growing, developing faculty. As the time came when they were trying to force me out of here, there were very few folk who had the real guts to stand up with me, because people want to work, you know. And sometimes it's not good to name people, because sometimes they don't understand what you're saying. There are some folk who were against me that I don't want to talk about. And I think if you read my book, see, I use pseudonyms in the book. In my book, I use pseudonyms. So, and I disclaim it by saying, so I try not to name names, because it has implications for maybe people seeing it the wrong way. I really try not to be sued in that book, but I do tell some stuff in that book about people who were either for or against me as the deal went down. I had to stand on my own. And I understand it's hard for people to come out, even like today, you know, people don't want to lose their job, but, so I'm not really saying much to you right now. You may give me another question.
You mentioned Margaret Walker Alexander. You would have been president when she founded the Institute for the Study of the History, Life, and Culture of Black People, which is now today the Margaret Walker Center, where you are, where we're conducting the interview. What do you remember about those early days of the Institute in 1968 and some of the conferences that Margaret would host and bring people?
Let me tell you about that now. Here's the way that all came about. All over the country, there was being set up so-called Black Studies programs and so on. And so I wanted to have not just Black studies, but the study of the history and culture of Black people in a more academic and rigorous sense. So I got permission from the board to start an institute for the study of the history and culture of Black people. and I wanted to be really to study the art, the music, and the history of black people, going back to some of these scholars in the past, you know. And so once I got permission to start this institute, I sent for Margaret Walker. And Margaret was a very strong person in a sense, but she couldn't work with anybody that she didn't like. That's just what I want to do. This thing I want to do. I said, okay, I'm going to make you director of it. That's how I thought it was. So she didn't really start, and then she was the first director of it. The whole idea was conceived by me. And to be not just a black studies thing where the kids study just about black studies or whatever that's supposed to be. I want it to be a more rigorous academic kind of a thing. I don't know what it is right now, because you've expanded more or less to make it a research thing. But it started off being an institute for the study of the history and culture of black people. And we had professors who were in art, music, and history. So, but she and I got along quite well because Margaret had these non-believers in her. You know, she had kind of a rough time getting her degree, because when I came in, she didn't. When she first came, she didn't quite have a PhD, but she had written this for my people thing. So when she got her PhD, I recall that we had she made it into her thesis into a book. Jubilee was her thesis. She made it into a book, called it Jubilee. And in the old library, you know, we had a book review for her and everything. That was my first days as president, you know. And Margaret would come in to see me, and I'd have to give her 2 or 3 hours because she's gonna really talk 2 or 3 hours, you know. And she'd talk about these folk who didn't believe in her, and they didn't, you know. We had 1 or 2 folk on the campus who already had PhDs, and they would say, "You'll never get your PhD." So she would talk about those folk, you know, who didn't believe in her. She had to go around the presidency to get support. Mississippi would provide financial support if you went to school out of the state, you know, field in which the old Mississippi State had. So she got money from the state, but she said they wouldn't recommend her here, but she wouldn't have got the money anyway. So she would tell me about all those folk who didn't believe in her, you know. I recall once when I was looking for a new head of the Department of English, she said, "You know what? Just let me have it just for maybe just a week, 2 weeks, so I can just be that boss." I don't want it forever, but just let me be a temporary. I can just those people just so I can just be that boss. I said, "Boy, another incident happened. She wrote an ode to the president of Jackson. For my inauguration, she wrote an ode, several beautiful ode to the president of Jackson State, to John A. Peoples. But for the inauguration, my vice president, P.E. Williams, he had got someone else to read it. I didn't know that, you know. She came at me crying. She said, "I don't know if I'll burn it up. I won't let that woman read this thing. I wrote it for you, and She said, "Why do you want to?" I said, "I didn't know that." I said, "No, you read it." I had to call Lee. I said, "Lee, man, what's the?" "Well, you know, doctor, people know this lady has a nice voice. You know, she's a beautiful voice." And I said, "Look, let Margaret read it. She wrote it." But I recall she came and she was furious that incident happened. But that's just along the line, you know. We got to be good friends. I used to play golf with her husband, her late husband, so on. So there was a couple of little things that happened. She was also, I said, well, she got some grants for the institute and so on, and so she was able to do some grant writing.
Are there events during your presidency that stand out in your mind? Are there moments, things that happened during your presidency? We talked about Gibbs Green, both good and bad, maybe, that stand out in your mind.
Well, I guess there may be some, in one sense, bad things. It wasn't bad. I don't know if you call it bad, but as in my book I talk about the decline of the presidency, in which presidents are no longer looked upon as scholars. We used to be looked upon as say philosopher kings, so to speak. But now you gotta get out and raise money and everything, and watch your budget and so on, and you gotta worry about being undermined by your own people. In my particular case, there was this growing conspiracy because I wouldn't cooperate in the heirs case with the board, and they were seeking to undermine me at Jackson State through some of the folk close to me. I was more or less aware. Maria told me once, she said, you better watch out for so-and-so. He's ambitious. She told me that. You watch out. That person is ambitious. I won't call this person's name. In my book, I call him NIWP, nigger in the woodpile. It's in my book. But anyway, Marley said, you better watch this guy. But as time went on, I recall at this particular board meeting, I was asked to come back to look at my budget, to talk about my budget, which I thought they meant. But when I went back that night to talk with the commissioner at that time, he was there with the board chair. I said, Dr. Peoples said, presidents nowadays have a real rough time and suffer burnout. And since you, like the senior president, we believe that you might have suffered burnout, and we're going to let you use the called umbrella, and you can move into a distinguished professorship with the same salary. I said, anything particular? No, we don't. You do a fine job, but you just believe that in time you suffer burnout. I said, thank you, sir. So I recall that I would have told Mary, I told myself, would you allow me to do my own announcement to the faculty about this? Oh, sure. And so, but and then they said, we're not going to renew your contract. And this was the contract was going to be ended in June 30 of 1984. And this is way back in about June of 83. Had a whole year. Give me a whole year. But it's okay. I was going to announce it to the faculty on Founders Day. And so in the meantime, the Mott Foundation, with whom I was consulting, had me to go with them to South America, to Brazil. So while I was down there, my wife called. She said, John, the thing we've been talking about is all over the papers. What? The fact that you were going to have to step down. I said, what? That's what someone going to say. They're going to let me announce it. Anyway, the kids out here got angry, and they marched on the board, marched downtown. And so I got a call from the commissioner, wanted me to come back up and stop those kids. So you orchestrated that from down there, which I didn't even know about. And I said, then he called me and said, we want you to resign, or we're gonna set up a board meeting and have a speaker. I want you to resign on the phone. I said, I'm not gonna resign on the phone. I'm not gonna do that. So I wouldn't answer any more calls. But I did decide to come home. But then there was a press out there waiting on me, man, a crowd in the airport wanted to find me. So I changed my flight and came in about 4 hours earlier. So when the press was out there waiting on me, I wasn't there. I had got home, you know. And at any rate, they wanted me, they summoned me down to the board so they could fire me, wanted to fire me. Wanted to make me resign. Well, the doctors, I had, while I was in Brazil, made the mistake of brushing my teeth with the water, and I had stomach cramp. You know how it is when you're in foreign land. They said, always brush your teeth away from the bathroom. So I couldn't eat anything. I had lost weight, and I was feeling pretty bad, and so they put me, and the doctor said, well, Dr. Peoples, is there anything else, but you can't come down there, which I didn't feel like coming down, but they wanted me to come down and wanted to ball me out. So finally, we had no agreement for me to come down, and so they finally agreed that I had to announce my resignation as of June 30 of '84, and I thought, you can't fight City Hall. That was something wanted me to sue. I had nothing to really sue for. I had a 4-year contract. That was it, you know. But I did get before them and say, I appreciate you folks giving me a chance, a boy from Starkville, getting a chance to come and assume this prestigious position. And I said, in every case, I recommended to you what I thought was best for Jackson State. And some of you didn't too much appreciate that, but however, this is what I did. And I appreciate the chance to be a distinguished professor. I worked for Mississippi State as a distinguished professor for a while. And that was a kind of a low point, mainly because of the way they did it, you know. There was no good reason to do it. There was nothing I'd done wrong or anything. They tried to find something wrong with the budget, you know, but there was, you know, they couldn't find it. They tried to undermine my budget the way they did with, they went way back trying to find something wrong in the budget. In case we had built that new dormitory, what they call it now. The state handles all that stuff. But we had to put some furniture in it, you know. And they went back and said that I had used money to put furniture in the dormitory, and that should have been done. I don't handle that, you state. Anyway, they were trying to find some way, because the president, what's happening to people? Why, you know, I could find out that why not to people, and the kids were all upset and everything. So that was a kind of low point in my career, in the sense that that I hadn't taken the chance to leave. I had so many offers back in those early days to go to like Tennessee State or to Texas Southern or to Wayne State, and I stayed here to fight the fight, because I believed I was going to make Jackson State as good as these other schools were, which is eventuating, as you can see now. But in those early days, they kept saying, come on up, but man, we're going to really give you a chance. You know, I was really a hot piece of property because of the thing we were doing here. But I said, I can't let these dudes break my spirit. I said, I'm going to hang in here and I'm going to do my thing, and I'm proud of what I've done. So I'm a happy trooper. No.
Do you regret not living?
No, I don't. I thought about it many times. I said, could I work up a head of steam at age 60? I could have, because I'm 84 now, but at that time, you know, people retiring at 65, you know. It was 65. And I said, I'll have another 5 years. And they tried to get me at Harvard. A board member called me. I said, well, that when I was 61, I said, I declined it. So no, I don't regret, because I am so happy to see Jackson State, you know, go forward as it is now, you know, with all the things that the people try to keep us from getting, you know. And I'm so far healthy, knock on wood, I'm healthy. I play golf 3 or 4 days a week, and I'm just happy to see things going the way they are. I've tried to be a good alumnus and relating well to my successors, you know, the presidents. You know, I don't hang around the place. I don't bother anybody, you know. Yes, you don't bother me, I won't bother you, you know. People, what do you think? I said, look, I did my thing, let them do their thing, you know. Now, if they ask me, you know, the buck stops with you, Madam President or Mr. President. Now, I did my thing. I don't know what you should do. I have on 1 or 2 occasions said maybe you should do this or shouldn't do that, you know. But you got to decide whether to do it or not. But I really try not to meddle. We had these folks say, "You still my president?" Oh, you got a new president. Yeah, but nobody let you. I said, every man does his own thing. And life is like a stage. So I have no regrets. People ask me that all the time. You know, do I have regrets about it? That I didn't take the job in Wayne State or in California, or go to Tennessee State, or go to Texas Southern. No, I don't regret it, because I'm here. And a lot of those guys in those places are dead. A lot of, I told my wife, I said, you know, we're blessed, baby. We have seen so much water under the bridge, and here we are, still happy. We still travel, you know. We went to China. We do things together, and I feel beloved amongst my kids and among my former faculty members. I get called on all the time, too many times when somebody died and want me to come and say something. But I have no regrets about it, because I could have left and I didn't. See, I couldn't do it because I said, I'm going to stay here. Like the Texas Southern board wanted me so bad, they wanted to interview me. And what they going to do, I said, well, look, I'm going to make Jackson State just as good as Texas Southern. And although I wasn't here to see it all through, but it's coming to pass. It's coming to pass. And I'm a happy trooper. Yeah.
I want to ask you one more thing about kind of your memories of this place, but I'd like to ask you about the surrounding community and what Lynch Street was like, and what the broader Jackson State community was like during your time as a student and as a president.
Well, when I was a student at Jackson State, Lynch Street wasn't paved at first. They had a little rock road, dusty. My freshman year was not even paved all the way down to roads. It was rocks. And I recall they paved it. But the black middle class lived over there, I would say, northeast of Jackson State. A lot of the prominent people, the professors and deans and doctors and lawyers lived over there in that area. This was this was not anything like a slum. This was a lot of prominent people here. They had they had this bus, 6 Mill Lynch Street bus, right back and forth there. So and even just north of Jackson State, a lot of prominent people lived over there. There were 1 or 2 doctors and lawyers and teachers. This was a thriving community. Yes, it was. Not being from a small town Starkville, you know, coming down here was a kind of a big. Although I had been in the Marine Corps, but this was a nice place to be. There's a movie house down the street there on Lynch Street, and Ferry Street was really something else again. Ferry Street had a lot of prominent doctors and lawyers down there, and a movie house down there. Yes. I don't know if I responded in detail, but this was a real nice area.
What do you think about Jackson State today?
Jackson State today, I see it as an unfolding of my dream. Tell the truth, because not that there are not new ideas coming along, but it's rather obvious that the things that I was pushing for, maybe not in the exact form it is now, but I feel that a role, and I tell our alumni, I say, look, don't you guys in the least feel backwards about what's going on, because you were a part of this. I tell the kids, I said, those of you who were in the streets fighting against the policemen or against discrimination, you were a part of this too. You brought this about. Don't you feel that you are not a part of it? And I say that when I make my speeches. I said, you alumni, we were all teachers, but that's okay. We were part of the struggle. So I see Jackson State now is a realization of the dream that I had and many others who along with me had, and I'm proud of Jackson State. Indeed, and I'm a proud alumnus, and I support the ones who come before me because I know what they've gone through, or what they're going through.
What do you think the future holds for Jackson State? What do you hope it holds for Jackson State?
Well, you know, the first thing I said to the board, I said, if I come back to Mississippi, I'm going to seek to have Jackson State serve all the people, regardless of race or creed. And that means it's going to be competing with Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And they didn't think I meant that, but I really meant it. In fact, one board member said, "All the people, if you keep on getting all these new degrees and new buildings, aren't you afraid that Jackson State's going to one day have a white president?" And I said, well, so that might eventuate. But if at the same time, if the University of Mississippi has a black president, it wouldn't make me any difference. I said, oh my God, I shouldn't say that to myself. But I would have said that to this guy, his name was Mr. Parker. But, and a lot of alumni, a lot of people, the white folk are going to take our school. You keep getting all this stuff. They think they're going to take our school. I said, you just stop that. I said, you were an alumnus, right? I said, you want to make sure we have the best people we can have at Jackson State. And to be able to, you can decide whether or not it's good for Jackson State to have a white president or whatever. That's your job. But right now, I'm going to make it the best school we can have. And if it turns out that there's a white president, let's hope he's a good one. So,
And it turns out that the University of Southern Mississippi just inaugurated its first African American president.
That's right. That's quite true. It's amazing. It's amazing. And that used to be the school that was the most racist now at one point in time, but some time ago. Yeah. But you know, people are people to me. You know, so it doesn't make me any different about the color. If they're good people, you know, just people.
If you could say something to a Jackson State student today, what would you say to them?
So I'm jealous of you guys. If I could have had the curriculum that you have now, had the breaks you guys are getting now, academic-wise, I don't know what I would have been, but I'm just jealous. I always wanted to be an engineer, and we didn't have anything here at that time. So go for it, man. Go for it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to say or add, or anything that you think that we haven't covered in the last hour and a half?
No. Well,
I know there's lots. We could probably do this for 3 or 4 more days.
yeah, because things come. Now, I just want more to say that I thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this oral history project, and I will continue as long as God willing to be supportive alumnus of Jackson State. And I guess that's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely enjoyed it.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
That's fantastic.